All right, here we go. Hi, everyone. I'm David from Ownership Ventures. It used to be Ownership Capital, but then lawyers asked us to switch the name. So here we are. I think it's a much better name. We are a MetaDAO-native activist fund. And today I'm going to be talking about pioneering of the untapped markets. And the story begins, 10 days ago around that like in one of the member chats, someone mentioned that there is a hard tech ecosystem and that there are a lot of opportunities in there. I do have a permission for the screenshot, by the way, just saying. And then another member says that there are like a lot of opportunities in the defense sector in Ukraine, right? And then also added that maybe ownership ventures should be focused on opportunities like that instead of going for some vision stuff like Hot Wheels gotcha stuff, right? Okay, I'm going to talk about that later as well. So being partly Ukrainian, I messaged my friend in Ukraine, and then literally like within 3 days, I had 3 decks, right? Like a drones company, a rotors company, and a munitions company. Now, I'm not really sure like how further we want to go in the spectrum of like military tech in general, but I generally thought that the rotors company is pretty interesting because I found out that like 10 to 20% of the rotors batch supply to Ukraine is usually defective. And because drones have 4 rotors in them, like if you don't really do a good QA, right, you end up with like 30 to 60% of your fleet being at the end of the day defective, right? So this company plans to manufacture rotors locally in Ukraine, right? And then within a week, I got 4 more decks, right? So like edge AI for drones, defense stations, controllers, and UAV decks, right? Now, it's all exciting, right? But like these are all real opportunities, but then like there is like no framework to actually fund those types of opportunities within MetaDAO, right? There are like a lot of questions, like what kind of jurisdiction should we create or like invest in? Is it like Ukraine? Is it like a parent company? How do we move funds? Like what about IP? It's a wartime in Ukraine, right? So how do we actually and efficiently keep the ownership over the IP of the company? Like another big factor is confidentiality, that the team, of course, wouldn't be able to share like a lot of information about the product they're building, so that in a way then impacts the governance decisions because you don't really have like all of the information about the product. How do we send the revenue to treasury, right? That's like another big topic. And then at the end of the day, like when we talk about the hard tech, whether it's like defense companies or robotics companies, there isn't like kind of a big enthusiasm from those teams to work with token communities, right? Because they just want to be focused on their like hard tech business, and it's not really common for them to work with the communities. Now, the thing is that this wasn't the first time I've been asking all of those questions. Like in the first week of when the fund proposal passed, I had a meeting with a friend of mine who's a Stanford professor, and he brought up like these 2 incredible opportunities. One was insurance for robots, which I think is like just an incredible opportunity on the market right now. And then like another idea was creation of a recursive robotics funding mechanism. Like the idea there is that, let's say you have a portfolio of robotics companies, and then like because there is like so many gaps like in robotics, you pretty much can understand what are the gaps for your portfolio, and then like you would invest in the startups that are solving those gaps for your portfolio companies, and then like, you basically loop the process, right? Again, exciting opportunities, but then when it came to actually coming up with a structure, like a legal structure, how we could be structuring all of this internally in MetaDAO, that's like where I had this like bottleneck of coming up with an efficient structure for that. And believe it or not, a lot of those questions are being answered by the Hot Wheels gotcha machine, and I'll tell you a bit of story about that as well. Yeah, so the story begins like around a month ago when I wrote this research on X that maybe the next collectibles meta is Hot Wheels. I kind of did a bit of like kind of digging in the market, and like $1.7 billion is spent on primary sales every year. There is like no secondary infra like gacha machines or like tokenization platforms as we have for TCG. And then like Hot Wheels pricing structure of the rarity tiers very much resembles TCG tiers. Yeah, like you can later kind of see the article as well. And we've been looking for startups to fund in that area, and we haven't been able to find anyone, right? So then at some point, because the fund is still in the formation stage, and it will take us around 2 months more, we kind of together with Profit as well, like came to this idea that maybe, you know, it would be good for us, like me and my co-founder, to actually put ourselves into the founder shoes and go through the whole process of being like raise money on Futardio and experience the whole process by ourselves, because that's like the people that we're going to be working with in the future. And along the way, create a framework for US businesses with inventory to raise on MetaDAO, right? Because again, as soon as we started to think about Hot Wheels Gacha and like we started to kind of frame the legal framework behind it, that's like where we had like all these bottlenecks. Like it's a California-based business. We're gonna have inventory here, and then like myriad of questions like how do we send the treasury, or how do we send the revenue to the treasury, right? And how do we make sure that the token holders do have actual impact on the US-based business, right? So a lot of questions. I think we got to the brighter side of all of these questions, and right now we have a pretty good understanding like of the legal frameworks that we're going to be taking, and we're going to be raising a small round on Futardio probably like on the 20th of July, like this month. The idea there is to raise small round, buy a lot of inventory, put money into the advertising. If it takes off, maybe like in 3 to 6 months, we're going to re-raise again, much bigger round, put maybe like 80% of that into the inventory. And then like 20% would be dedicated to an operator, because of course, like me and my co-founder, we have to be focused on the fund side. So the idea there is to find an operator for the business at that stage. Now, you know, you might think that, you know, Hot Wheels Gacha Machine is a defocusing factor for us as founders. But what I really want to show you here is that we're going to be pioneering a lot of decisions like that, because we want to see the boundaries and like the edges where we can take MetaDAO, right? And we do really want to show a lot of examples, and sometimes by pioneering them ourselves, right, to the people that want to raise money and do the actual business. Now, macro level, right? Like at the very beginning when we were forming the fund, like very beginning, right? I saw that our main responsibility going to be to invest and then like govern, and that's why we're still going to do that, of course, and being like activist investors. Then like at some point I realized that if we do want to grow the fund with like even $2 million, it's really hard for us to allocate, and it maybe will take us a year to allocate that amount with current deal flow on MetaDAO. So that's where I realized that we need to be deeply involved in deal sourcing as well if we want to raise more capital, because no one is going to give us money so that it just is idle on our bank accounts, right? So we need to be here as well. And then after kind of being involved in all of this like defense and robotics and like now Hot Wheels Gacha, I really realized that like another role for us is building the frameworks. And then like based on those frameworks, let's say like as soon as we have a good framework for Hot Wheels Gacha Machine, we can literally work with any California-based business that has an inventory, and it could be a robotics company as well, right? So every framework unlocks pretty much the next category for us. And now the big question is, you know, like, what's the incentive behind all of that? And like big incentive for us is by building frameworks behind great opportunities, we expect to have majority guaranteed allocations in all of those startups. So that's like our main incentive in building the frameworks and then finding the deal flow. But and then again, right, being major allocators in all of those opportunities. Thank you so much. Any questions, David?
I already know the answer, but probably the audience would benefit. Like, what do you expect your standard check size to be?
Yeah, so we expect to invest 100 to 200K, and majority of our focus is going to be on early stage startups. So I would think below 1 million market. I mean, we could participate in higher raises as well, but I would expect us to be looking for early stage opportunities. Yeah.
And consumer, right?
Yeah, well, consumer mainly. We are really excited about robotics, AI. Yeah, so I think during the panel, I'll talk more about, some of the my ideas, like what kind of startups we are looking for. Yeah, so I'll go deeper into the topic as well.
Cool. Thanks, David. Next up, we're going to do an